to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Friday, May 16th, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Well, apparently local news stations have been given the directive to convince their small town folk that an over-militarized police force is totally fine. There's nothing to worry about. It's for your safety.
Tanks, guns, armor, all tried and tested on the battlefield. Now some of it is here in central Indiana on our streets, being used to keep us safe.
Some of our local police departments are now armed for war.
To keep Hoosiers safe at a time of escalating homeland violence.
Plus, you have a lot of people that are coming out of the military that have the ability and the knowledge to build IEDs and to defeat law enforcement techniques.
Did you hear that? They're preparing for the veterans, your likely domestic terrorists. That was a local news station coming out of Indiana. They're there convincing the people that they need these tanks and all of this weaponry from Afghanistan because of the domestic unrest in the country. Where are they? It's Indiana. What are they talking about, domestic unrest? We've been reporting about this all along. Police are arming themselves to fight against your average American citizen, conservatives, patriots, and definitely returning military. Why aren't people seeing this? Well, perhaps because their local news stations are massaging it into their brain that this is completely normal. And I'm curious if there are other stations out there in other cities that are also being given this rhetoric to spill out to people in their cities. But notice how there's no mention from the sergeant that he's trying to protect his town from the Mexican drug cartels that are running rampant all over the country as the DEA just covers for them. Nope, they're just letting you know that it's the returning veterans who've sacrificed for this country who have the knowledge of how to build an IED that are the potential terrorists. Those are the real threat. Now, the sergeant admitted that when he drives through the town, people are frightened and they say, why do you need this military vehicle? Are you here to take our guns? And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Not yet, not until he's given the orders. And of course, this just correlates with the federal rhetoric that's just trying to line up this public point of view that returning veterans are the threat. So it basically doesn't make any sense when you see the tyranny training facility there at Fort A.P. Hill. Basically, they're training the troops to be comfortable firing upon themselves when they return back to the streets of America. They're training them to be comfortable and desensitized on the streets of America to fire into a bank or fire into a church or to a fire station. And who are the likely domestic terrorists when they return? The veterans, the troops. So hopefully that's a big wake-up call to the military. But basically they're using you to fight their dirty wars, and then they treat you like Al-Qaeda when you get back to town. Now, we've got leaked documents that show another urban training center in North Carolina was indeed built after a U.S. town. It looks nothing like a foreign combat zone. It looks like small-town America. The document is entitled Military Operations on Urban Terrain Collective Training Facility. It details the specifics of a mock 30-acre town located on Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. It was originally built in 1990. But of course, they've had some upgrades to the facility, including a Baptist church, a police station, and several farmhouses. They've transformed this quote-unquote international town. Now, these upgrades to the facility perfectly illustrate how they're trying to shift the public perception to view conservatives and veterans as likely domestic terrorists. They're training the troops to fire into Baptist churches because these people are the threat. And according to a 1989 press release, it mentions that the facility's original structures included a high school gymnasium where they could house evacuees, or it could be used as a detaining center for prisoners of war. Of course, those are the same exact things, really, when we're talking about FEMA camps. Now, the Department of Defense is training troops, of course, to see supporters of individual liberties and states' rights as extremists, basically being desensitized to fire upon American civilians during times of civil unrest, which is pretty insane because it's the globalists who are causing this civil unrest. And so they know it's coming, they're preparing for it, and of course they've got to prepare the troops to follow orders. And then you have your small-time news stations who are just preparing all the cities and towns to just be completely okay with this and to not worry about the fact that all these big military vehicles are rolling into town armed for war. It's for your safety. That was like the most aggravating report, seeing that. And please, if you have any footage from your local news station where they're trying to desensitize you to the over-militarized police force, please send it into showtips@infowars.com, because we really need to put together a little montage of this PSYOP going on. But basically, look at what Brazilians are going to have to be dealing with when the World Cup comes next month. They've got RoboCops, actual RoboCops. It's a 400 RoboCop-style military police are going to be patrolling the World Cup in Brazil. They resemble exactly the cops that were depicted in the 1985 cult classic film Brazil, in which a totalitarian government rules a dystopian society with a bureaucratic iron fist. Now, the men are part of the elite BOPE unit of military police who regularly operate in Rio de Janeiro, and they're usually on 24-hour standby dealing with terrorist threats. But now they're going to be dealing with football hooligans who step out of line. Now, Brazil, of course, is currently being rocked by riots, strikes, and protests across the country because demonstrators are outraged at the cost of the World Cup, while things like their school system and other sectors of their society have been neglected in order to stage this soccer tournament. But this is just a perfect example of how civil unrest stems from people just being fed up with all of the government corruption. And so that's exactly an example of what they know is coming here when people here in America finally get fed up with all the corruption and all of the misrepresentation, but also the fact that reality is now far scarier than any dystopic future that was created in a science fiction film. I mean, that is frightening, that we have gone beyond Soylent Green, beyond 1984, Brazil. Here we are. But you don't have to be a fancy World Cup cop to get your very own military gear. Here in America, you can just work for the United States Department of Agriculture. The USDA apparently is soliciting for submachine guns. This is according to a solicitation on the FedBiz Ops website. USDA is set to purchase an unknown number of submachine guns. The solicitation reads, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Office of the Inspector General, located in Washington, D.C., has a requirement for the commercial acquisition of submachine guns. Now, it goes on to say how tricked out these machine guns need to be, including a 30-round magazine. But hey, I thought those were bad news, but apparently not for the guys there at the USDA. They need a 30-round magazine. Now, the fact that the Law Enforcement Division of the United States Forest Service isn't mentioned in the solicitation gives rise to the question, where will these guns be going? Who at the USDA needs submachine guns and night scopes and all kinds of triggers that will allow them to have gloves on? And is anyone seeing where this is going? We have police and government agencies that have no business having submachine guns, arming themselves to the teeth, being training the troops now to fight against Christians and patriots and returning veterans and anyone that has a conservative viewpoint. The globalists know they're outnumbered, and that's why they want to keep us in our slumber, lest we wake up to the reality of the power we have in numbers. We outnumber them, and we are mighty. We are mighty people.
My friends, Alex Jones here to tell you about some of the most important information concerning you and your family's health. Radiation levels have more than doubled in the last 60 years in the Northern Hemisphere from all of the nuclear testing and radiological accidents. Radioactive contamination is now in most of the food supply. There's only 2 ways to avoid this. Move south of the equator or properly protect your thyroid with nascent iodine. Looking to protect my family, I've done deep research. Nascent iodine is the purest, cleanest, absolute best form of iodine to protect yourself and your family. It's made right here in the USA, completely non-GMO. I searched out the best quality and now have developed a double-strength form of nascent iodine, exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com. Nascent iodine is on record as one of the only safe ways to detox from fluoride poisoning. Survival Shield Nascent Iodine. Secure your super high-quality nascent iodine today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.